In 1886, Giuseppe Rollini, one of Turin's best-known portrait artists and a lifelong friend of Bosco, begged Don Rua to allow him to do a portrait of our founder. If we can persuade him to pose, Don Rua replied. It was not easy. At first, Don Bosco thought it was a joke of some sort. Finally he gave in. He sat in an armchair in the library near his room, not very convinced. I am going to do a few sketches of you, Don Bosco, Rollini told him. Just relax, think quiet, pleasant thoughts. Don Bosco did, and promptly fell asleep. He slept soundly for half-hour. Unwilling to disturb him, Rollini made several charcoal sketches of him slumbering away peacefully. When Don Bosco woke up, he excused himself to the artist, promising to do better next time. Well, he did eventually, and the result is a stunning portrait of our founder, now hanging in the saints' rooms in Valdoco. I am afraid you would go to sleep were I to portray Don Bosco to you with a sermon. A panegyric on our founder is the last thing you need or want. Yet I think you will agree that the secret of the holiness and charisma of Don Bosco is even for us Salesians as elusive and indefinable as the edge of the sea. We are hard put to understand the what, in the words of Pope Pius XI, who canonized Don Bosco, and said his ideas. These are things which we find difficult to understand. He did not use the word charisma because it wasn't used in those days, speaking of Pius XI. But we are hard put to explain the unbelievable success his ideas, methods, and spirit have had in building the mystical body of Christ in our times. The words of Pius XI. I therefore propose not to speak to you of Don Bosco, but to let him speak to us. To let him answer some questions in a sort of interview that will reveal to us his thoughts on the Salesian way of life. Now, this is not a far-fetched idea, the idea of an interview, because Don Bosco himself suggested it when in 1886 he visited the French novitiate near Marseilles. He was tired, exhausted. He was coming from Paris. And when he was asked to address the novices for a few minutes, he did it in his slow, correct, but halting French. Then suddenly he stopped and smiling said to the novices, "Suppose you ask me some questions." Father Binelli, who was the young novice master, wrote in his diary, questions came from every side. Don Bosco, what makes a Salesian? Why did you name us after St. Francis de Sales? Is our apostolate to be limited to young people? Is it true that The Salesians will number in the thousands within the next 50 years. One question drew a smile from Don Bosco, but no direct reply. Did you really see the Blessed Virgin? Unfortunately, Father Pinelli only mentions some of the questions, but none of the replies. And all we are left with is the wish that a tape recorder had been available in those days. Our interview with Don Bosco need not purely be imaginative. Fortunately, we have a wealth of directives in his spoken and written word. And all we need do is paraphrase them somewhat. Here is our first question. Don Bosco, how do you see your sons in these hard times? Like the church, we are in a crisis. Some of us even believe that this is the time when your famous dream, qualis esse periclitatur, as our society is likely to be in serious, if not deadly danger. Well, some of us think that this is the time. This is what's happening now. And Don Bosco speaks. Our congregation has come a long way since its humble beginning with evident advantages to the church. It is now at a turning point, like the church itself. There are dangers, but none it cannot overcome. It is youthful, vigorous, extremely adaptable. Even more important, it is the Lord's own work. Don Bosco, you speak of dangers. Yes, let's begin with the most serious one, secularism, materialism. Christianity is fighting a near-losing battle with it. It seeps right into our communities. Like an anesthetic, it deadens faith and paralyzes the action of grace. Do you remember the salt that loses its tang and the light that is placed under the bushel? It is what my Salesians are in danger of becoming if they fall prey to this plague. What is the remedy, Don Bosco? A genuine spirit of faith that feeds on prayer and the sacramental life. We once called it the spirit of union with God. If a Salesian fails to relate to the Lord in a personal, intimate way, what can be expected of him? Any other dangers, Don Bosco, that the family spirit, so typically Salesian, may vanish from our midst? If the warmth of God, of Christ's charity, is no longer what moves you, if mutual understanding and fraternal concern for one another are no longer a reality, if in a word a Salesian community is not a family, you are no longer Salesians. Don Bosco, anything else we should fear? Yes, to shy from the cross. Too many religious, even too many Salesians, would like to eliminate the cross from their life. But how can a religious do that? How can he possibly ignore the words of Jesus? If anyone wants to follow me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and come after me. As Salesians, we chose to live as Christ did, literally, and to do so in the midst of the poor, the rejected, particularly the young. so we can bring to them the redemption and liberation of Christ. We cannot go back on this commitment. Don Bosco, even among us, there are some who say that we Salesians have left the poor behind us. Not so. They think of me during those first difficult years in Baldaco, and they say, why have we Salesians left doing what Don Bosco did? The truth is there are hundreds of Baldacos in the world with Salesians doing what I was doing and even more. All we need is to think of places like Tondo in Manila, or Santo Domingo, or the leper colony in India, the favelas in Rio, the struggling missions in Africa. There are souls waiting for Christ everywhere. The young drug addicts, the Salesians have in their care in Turin, Milan, and Rome, are mostly from middle and upper class families. But who will say that their moral misery is less tragic than the material misery of those youngsters in Tondo near Manila? It matters not where my Salesians might be working, whether in Westchester County or in the shanty barrios of Santo Domingo. What does matter is that they spend themselves for souls, remembering that souls are led to Christ only through suffering. Don Bosco, how can we attract vocations again? Young people should be made to experience the climate of family spirit in our communities, supposing that there is such a family spirit. Let them see too the work we do for souls, the way in which we do it. Be careful not to give these young people the impression that ours is an easy and comfortable life. They know the cross awaits them. They should know too that happiness for a Salesian is in being ready, disposed to give himself completely to Christ and to his brothers. What about our young Salesians, Don Bosco? They are the society's most precious endowments. Take good care of them. Try to understand them. They reflect the world in which they grew, which was not quite like the world in which you older people grew. Generous they are, for the most part, and full of goodwill, but they need guidance. The example we give them is what counts, and above all the warmth of the family spirit. If these young men do not find love and understanding in our communities, they will soon be looking for these things elsewhere. But Don Bosco, they tend to fend for themselves and launch out on their own. They must be made to feel they belong to a family where they are trusted as responsible people who need and must be allowed to express themselves freely within the bounds of obedience and of religious discipline. Forming them to obedience and to sound discipline does not mean making automatons of them. The Salesian vows himself to be obedient, not servile. I will not call you slaves, but friends. John Galiero, our future cardinal, as a young Salesian, was obedient to a fault, but far from compliant and submissive. He spoke his mind freely, often with sharp words, even with me, Don Bosco speaking. But careful you must be not to throw these young men all in one mold. It was never my style. Take them to your confidence. Be frank and open with them, friends and brothers to them. Don Bosco, on what must a Salesian anchor his vocation? Peter, do you love me? The Lord's words to Peter are at the root of every religious vocation. The vocation and life of a Salesian makes sense only in this context. The love of Jesus for you, your love for him. Let me say it again. If a Salesian is not totally rooted in a very personal way in the love of Christ, he will never be of much good to himself or to anyone else. And Our Lady, Don Bosco, can we possibly separate her from Jesus? She is his mother. She's our mother. Where would I be? Where would the congregation be without her? One final question, Don Bosco. We are forever talking about the Salesian spirit. What is it all about? When I chose St. Francis de Sales as my and your model, I did so because I felt that of all the saints, the heart of Francis was most like the heart of Jesus. I felt I could hardly have made a better choice for myself and for my Salesians. It has been said that I added something of my own to this. But I myself, and these are his very words, but I myself am at a loss to say what it is, since all I did was let myself be led by the Lord's inspiration and the needs of the moment. In the end, it is the heart that matters. Which means that a Salesian must give of himself as Jesus did, unreservedly, and to do so with loving kindness and utmost respect for all. Nor should we wait for people to come to us, but we must reach out to them, particularly if they be youngsters in need. Anything that is good. You just heard it in the first reading. All that is true, all that deserves respect, all that is honest, pure, admirable, decent, worthy of praise, all these things are in your program. One thing I will tell you, remember always, that only through suffering are souls led to Christ, and that a life of ease and comfort spares death for our society. I might add that to our action, to your action, we must bring our special charisma, that special something, that approach which is at once creative, genial, joyous, and enthusiastic. This is what the Salesian spirit is all about, on with your word. Don Bosco, it is a big order you give us, but we certainly intend not to disappoint.